Hi and welcome to another Matura Express stream. My name is Chris and today we're gonna talk about giving extended answers. As I've already told you in the introduction to this stream, today's stream is all about giving extended answers and how to use connector words and phrases. And of course, those things are very important for your oral A-level exam. You will have to take part, and yeah, let's start with today's overview. Today we're gonna discuss why it's important to give extended answers. The overview of how to give extended answers. Then we're gonna have a look at helpful connector words, helpful phrases, and last but not least, we're gonna have a short practice and demonstration task on how to give extended answers, which I'm gonna do with you. Let's jump into the first thing we're gonna discuss today. Why it's important to give extended answers. So basically, extended answers are answers that are not that short, as if you have to imagine as if you would write a sentence, the boy fell. That's a very short sentence and would also be a short answer, or similar to it, just to illustrate it that you have an idea of it. If you would like to give extended answers, you can facilitate it with different words or phrases. And of course, extended answers also help you, which is the first point here, to help the examiners to better assess you, which means that basically if the examiners know that you can use the language properly, which is also concerned of how you structure your sentences, and if you only use short sentences or short answers, if you use extended answers, they're gonna grade you much better than if you use short answers. If you want to know all about the assessment scale and how you're assessed in the oral A-level exam, then you'll have to then you have to look up the stream on, I forgot about it. The stream on how you're assessed, I think, yeah. Okay, the second point is, what does it also help you, or how does it help you, not what does it help you? It prevents you from constantly thinking about time, which of course means if you have the possibility to talk a lot, time will pass much more quickly, and therefore you should be thinking of using extended answers in your oral A-level exam. Of course, we already touched upon this topic a little bit. It also depicts your language knowledge. So there wouldn't be, for example, if we have good novels from a well-known author, the author is mostly not known if he writes very short sentences. Sometimes we can argue, yeah, they're poems, but we're not doing a reading list, so we don't have to know it now. But normally, if you have some sort of longer sentence, detailed sentence that don't have to be 3-line sentences, then it's a way that's a much more formal and sophisticated way, I think. It also helps you to elaborate on a point, which means etwas genauer ausführen. For example, you have a specific topic and you go into detail on a specific topic. And it best prepares you for the dialogue. It also prepares you for the monologue, of course, but answers are normally given in the dialogue and in the follow-up discussion of the exam. Okay, that's all about this thing, why we use extended answers. And now we're going to talk about the overview of how to give extended answers. So, basic overview, of course, overlaps with some of the parts we've discussed in the first slide now. But basically, an overview would be that you use your own knowledge as well as knowledge you've gained through other sources. And that's a part of giving extended answers, because if you don't have the knowledge of a certain topic, you won't be able to give extended answers. And therefore, you should have gained enough knowledge and enough knowledge of the topic, of the specific topic you are discussing. And yeah, that really helps you to facilitate giving extended answers. Try to use connector words is also part of extended answers, which we're gonna look into more detail in the next slide. And try to explain something in a more detailed way. We already had that. Elaborate on a point. Also try to mention pros and cons of the topic you're talking about. Very important. Very simple, I think. Very simple to prepare, to practice. But if you don't know it, it's gonna be a hard time for you in the oral exam. And the last thing here is, if you can try to contrast a topic with another topic, of course, that also helps you to give extended answers. So if you compare something, normally you know everything about the topics you compare, so you can pick out some different aspects of each topics and then compare them, and of course add your own knowledge to it or your own opinion on those specific topics you have picked. Okay, so now we're gonna discuss helpful connector words. So basically, connector words are all about connecting. Yes. What does connecting mean in a sense? In this case, not in a sense. It can mean that it makes a sentence or two sentences more reader friendly. So of course, for example, if we have two sentences like the boy was hit by the ball, he didn't care. two sentences, but not very connected. So if we want to connect it, but still want two individual sentences, we just can use the boy was hit by the ball. However, he didn't care, which makes it even this small, in this case it's an introduction word, makes it more cohesive, as we say in when we talk about writing. When we talk about speaking, it's always the same word way, but if you have connector words, can also be words as but or not only, but also. But we're gonna look into them in a more detailed way. But first, I have prepared words that basically introduce sentence, but also can connect sentences. If we want to contrast something, we can use different words. Some of them I've listed for you here. So, of course, however is very common. In contrast, nevertheless. Yet can also be as a substitute of but. And a very common word or phrase, not word, it's a phrase actually, on the one hand and on the other hand, is basically used to contrast to attitudes, to different topics or different opinions basically. And yeah, if you want to express similarity, you can do so by using also, likewise, or in the same way, or such as, with as, not ass. If we want to speak about results, we can use as a consequence, therefore, or accordingly, or as a result. So for example, we have, which sentence do we form now? The student was very rude to the teacher, and as a consequence, he was forced to read Stephen Hawking's Under the Dome 3 times, which is a very harsh punishment, I think. But the student won't be rude again. No, you can use it in this example for in such a case, or in another case where you want to express a result. Sequencing, of course, is very important. You have already, I think you have heard of it. Let's start with the more obvious ones. First, second, third. Those 3 can also be used with firstly, secondly, thirdly, or in the first place, in the second place, in the third place. And if you want to use different words or phrases, you can also use to begin with, or finally, last or lastly, if we stick to the connector words, not phrases. Makes it, if you know more of them, it makes it more easier for you to kind of make it more vivid, your talk. Okay, and then we have, of course, exemplification. We have, for example, for instance, and my personal favorite, to illustrate, which is, I think it's a bit more formal and I think if you use a word such as, or a phrase to illustrate, you will be fine. You do, of course, you have to know about the topic, but yeah. If we want to explain something, we can use namely, in other words, or differently, or put differently. For example, if we you want to use in other words, you have explained something very difficult, or in a difficult way, and now you think, okay, I think nobody or not everybody will understand it this way I've explained it, and then you can put it in your, not in your, yeah, of course in your own words, but differently, in a more easy way, I think, more understandable way. And then you can use in other words, which is quite commonly used. So if you have problems with using them, you can also look it up on the internet, of course, and you can also watch our stream. And in conclusion, or to conclude something, we use in conclusion, in summary, to sum up, or all in all, it was a fantastic moment. For example, or to sum up, the story really caught my attention, and I started crying when I was reading this letter about this old man. No, just joking. The next slide, or this slide, is all about the helpful phrases. We have already touched upon helpful phrases and words. I've jumbled it around there. Jumbled was kind of mixed between words, mixed between verbs and phrases. Words and phrases, not verbs. And in this case, I've listed a few phrases you can use to express certain things. In the first place, of course, to introduce something, not only but also to contrast something. Not only was he a great football player, but he was also a great lover, for example. Or, as a matter of fact, she didn't go to class last week. Or, equally important, of course, then both things you're comparing are equally, so be sure to use it the right way, the phrases. Otherwise, it's gonna be quite embarrassing, I think. As an illustration, we already had some sort of a similar phrase. I hope you can see the last, yeah. And then, in other words, oh, I forgot one. With this in mind, we can think about the future in a different way or something. If you talked about communication, for example. In other words, we already had this phrase. Another phrase that I really like is, another key point of this topic is digital communication, for example. To point out is basically used if you want to highlight something. So maybe something in the article you have read for your dialogue, that you can use for your dialogue, really struck you and stuck with you. Then you can just tell the examiner that to point out I lose the no. What did I want to say now? Yeah, to point out that thing that really strikes me, or yeah, in this kind of situation you can use them. And all things considered, it's made basically to wrap the things up. So wrap your talk up, or sum it up, or make a conclusion, something like this. Or as has been noted, there are several different aspects that have to be considered when talking about this topic. For example, can be used with this phrase. Now, we have talked about all phrases and connector words and the basic usage of giving extended answers. This means that the next step is a demonstration of it, how to use it best. Therefore, I've prepared some sentences that are really, really creative. And yeah, I'm gonna like to read it to you and work with it, of course. And basically the sentences are structured so that you have a phrase for almost every situation. And of course, it's also about, in this case, it's all about the topic environment and the subtopic alternative energy forms or resources, or in this case it's forms. And I've just tried to structure it similar. You want similar as in an exam, so you could use it, of course. If you're doing, in this case, it's more like a monologue. And you could start off with, if you have a topic, of course, like this. At first, I'd like to elaborate on the topic of alternative energy forms. And then, of course, you're going to discuss all about all the things you know all of this topic. And if you're treating something additionally, you can, of course, introduce this thought by using in addition to this. So in addition to treating alternative forms of energy, I want to mention, in this case, the growing usage of electric cars and their drawbacks. And this, of course, the sentence is all about the things nobody talks. So normally electric cars are depicted in a very super positive way, a new way of cars, and car manufacturers are also making advertisement for it. But of course there are drawbacks, as with every other topic. And then you could continue your talk with, there are several forms of alternative energy, such as hydropower, biomass, photovoltaic, on and on and on. You know all about it. If you don't know all about it, you can watch the stream about environment. Environment and pollution. Then you could continue with, not only can we use them for producing electricity, so them is used, them in this case is referring to alternative energy, for producing electricity, but also for heating. In addition, alternative energy forms such as wind power don't emit carbon dioxide. Emit is not with double T, isn't it? No. Emit.
I'll look it up.
Yeah. So maybe I made a mistake there. Huh?
this one, but emitted is with
Yeah,
two.
I think I wanted to write emitted maybe. Oh. So we're gonna, yes, that's the right way to write it. And then if you want to conclude your talk, you can do so by using the phrase you've just learned. To sum up, alternative energy forms will replace non-renewable sources to some extent, but not until fossil fuels such as gas, oil and petroleum are depleted. And of course, in this case, but is also used as a connector word, and but is a conjunction which can be used to join two sentences. If you want to use conjunctions such as but, you just remember the catchy phrase fanboys, which is for and but or and yet and nor, which is the fanboys. Yes. I'm very happy that I managed to remember the fanboys catchy phrase thingy. Yes, that's basically it about the topic of how to give extended answers. Do we have any questions in our lovely chat?
No, we don't.
Okay. If you have any questions and we're not there anymore, don't hesitate to write it in the chat even after we're finished, and we're gonna come back to the questions in the next stream. Our next stream is on Monday with Karina, I think. And in this case, I wish you a very, very pleasant and relaxed evening. Goodbye.